I walked along a snow-covered road where children used to be taken to school in yellow Paz buses. Now it was so covered in snow that you couldn't even see the asphalt. Here and there, crooked rusty signs stuck out. One of them warned about a speed bump, another about children. These children had long since grown up, and those who remained were no longer people. They hid in the shadows, in basements and gaps, uttering a low groan, as if they had forgotten how to speak, but remembered that they were once alive. I walked through the center of the former Chertanovo, step by step, carefully stepping over debris and tracks. The snow was dirty, with streaks of soot and blood. Tracks. These were not dog paws or boot soles. These were heavy, stretching furrows from someone's feet, dragging themselves along without strength. Sometimes handprints were mixed in with them, as if the dead could not stand up straight and crawled, clinging to the ice. I was wearing an old quilted jacket stuffed with rags, tied at the waist with a leather belt. I had taken it from one of those who was no longer moving. The hood was pulled down to the eyes, but the cold was still getting inside. Under the quilted jacket was a gray sweater with stretched sleeves. On my feet were men's army boots, worn out, but strong. They contained someone's past lives and maybe even death. All I could do was keep going. I hadn't eaten for 3 days. There used to be life here. People argued in minibuses, fought over parking, carried bread and bags from Pietrochka home. Now there is a shadow in every window, silence in every alley. Only the stench remains. A special, Swedish, wet smell of rotting meat, baked blood, and old plumbing dust. I knew this place was dangerous, but I also knew something else. If I didn't find food now, I wouldn't be able to get up by morning. Ahead, on the corner, stood a building with a knocked-out facade. Once it had been a grocery store. Now it was a black hole in which anything could be. Canned goods and death. I stood up and listened. No sounds, no wind, no footsteps, no groans, only the occasional crunch of my boots on the crust. Slowly, clutching the metal pipe in my hand, I walked inside. The smell hit me right away. Damp mold, rot, and gasoline. The floor was sticky. Water was dripping somewhere. I walked past the counters, abandoned carts and scraps of receipts. It was as if the world had ended mid-sentence. I remembered standing in line here, holding a pack of noodles in my hand and waiting for the cash register to ring. Everything was still there then. Back then, the trains hadn't disappeared, the cities hadn't gone dark, the radio stations hadn't gone silent. I saw movement through the glass door of the freezer. Inside, among the frozen chickens, sat a man. A man, thin, shaggy, in a military jacket. He didn't move. I froze, holding up the pipe. He looked up, alive, just hiding. We looked at each other for a second, 2, and then he put a finger to his lips. Silence. And then I heard them. First, a quiet wheeze. Then, a shuffling. 3, maybe 4 bodies, moving toward the entrance. Slowly, tenaciously, out of sync. Zombies have no plan, no tactics, but they have a sense of smell, a memory for smells. I pressed myself against the shelf with pasta, curling into a ball. They passed by. One of them was a woman, with a torn jacket and a child's hat with a pom-pom. A bitten hand was sticking out of her mouth. Another was dragging part of a leg, someone else's leg. The third was in a police uniform. I saw how his eye socket was filled with pus. Once he kept order. Now he was walking where there was a smell of life. When they were gone, I slowly straightened up. The man in the freezer was gone. Only the lid of the can remained on the floor. He watched and left. I didn't blame him. In this world, everyone is for themselves. I took 3 jars, one with peas, one with some meat. The third one had the inscription erased. I don't care. Food. When I went outside, the sun was setting. Smoke was billowing over the rooftops, dark and acrid. Someone was burning trash. Maybe bodies. There were 3 people standing on the corner. They had red armbands. I knew who they were. The so-called commune. They had declared a new order in those areas. They had returned to the old words, comrade, labor, justice. They said they were gathering everyone who was tired of being alone. "Girl," one said, "don't be afraid. We can see you're not infected. We just want to talk." He was elderly, with deep wrinkles and calm eyes. On his shoulder was a homemade machine gun. He made no sudden movements, only a voice, tired and even. "We have a roof, food, order. We have a commune. We are returning to what worked." I was silent. He held out his hand. In it was a piece of bread, real, stale, but bread. I took it and cried. There were 3 of us when we reached the school. Me, the old man, his name was Grigory Mikhailovich, and a silent guy of about 20, whom he called Tolya. None of them asked questions. We walked slowly, not along the street, but along the clearings between the panels, through snowdrifts and playgrounds overgrown with bushes and the rusty remains of swings. Once upon a time, children ran around on these playgrounds, playing cops and robbers. Now, only traces of the dead, stretching in a chain along the wall, interrupted at the place where life ended. The school building looked like a fortress, old, typical, with peeling walls and broken windows, but the windows were boarded up. Rusty pins and wire stuck out from the inside. A sentry with a homemade spear stood by the porch. He had a red ribbon on his hat. Commune. When we approached, he did not raise his weapon. He simply nodded. Grigory said briefly, "One of our own." Inside it smelled of smoke, wet wood, and medicine. The entire space of the hall was filled with metal beds, mattresses, ammunition boxes, and bottles of water. In one corner there was a smoldering stove with 2 people sleeping next to it in sleeping bags. In another there was an improvised first aid station, 3 bandages, a pack of iodine, a stethoscope hanging on a nail. It was cold, but not freezing. Someone had organized all of this. Not for themselves, for others. I was led upstairs to the former teacher's office. There sat a woman with a headscarf on her head and a gray face. She looked about 40, but she might have been 30. Her face was like weathered stone. Safronova, right?" she asked without getting up. I nodded. "We have rules. Every unit must be useful." "What can you do?" I thought. Then I said, "A nursery teacher. I can also sew a little." "Cook. Look after the wounded, if necessary." The woman nodded as if this was better than I expected. "My name is Tamara. I'm here for everyday life. Find me tomorrow. I'll show you where the kitchen is. You'll help. If you don't run away by morning." "What if I run away?" She looked out the window. Evening was falling on the ruined city, resounding and indifferent. "Then you won't come back." I was given a corner in the geography room. A map of the Soviet Union hung on the wall, sooty and pierced with a nail. I sat under it and unfolded the blanket. Someone had left a postcard on the windowsill. "Happy New School Year, Andrei Sergeyevich." I ran my finger over the faded letters. This world was different. Soft. Unprotected. It couldn't stand it. I didn't sleep that night. I heard someone coughing downstairs, doors slamming. Someone quietly praying in one of the classrooms. I lay with my eyes open, feeling unsafe, but simply not alone. That was already too much. At dawn, the school bell rang. A real one. Someone had powered the wiring from batteries. Everyone stood up, as if on command. I was given a mug of hot tea. Real tea, not grass. And a piece of porridge. The porridge was bitter, but warm. I ate it to the last crumb. The kitchen smelled of smoke, iron, and fat. The stove was fueled by wood. It was heated by a woman in a padded jacket named Vera, a silent one. She did everything slowly but precisely. I helped her, washed bowls, carried water, cut old bread. In the corner stood a box with frozen pork scraps. Grigory said they found them in a freezer at a supply base somewhere in the south. Now such finds were more valuable than gold. While I was cutting bread, a man entered the dining room, tall, with a black beard, in a military uniform without insignia. They called him Alexei. He was in charge of security. He had a glassy expression on his face, as if he was looking not at you, but through you. And yet they were afraid of him. Even Grigory. He looked at me and said, "You're with us now. Then listen. We have discipline. No runaways, no, I'll do it myself. If you can't listen, you'll leave through the window. Is that clear?" I nodded. He silently took the mug, poured some soup, and left. Only later did I learn that it had always been like this here. The commune was not based on faith but on fear and calculation. Everyone knew their place. Every day was like a mechanism. If it started, work. If it got stuck, break it. No one talked about the future. Only about tomorrow. But that same evening I learned what happens when this mechanism fails. A young guy, Pasha, was found at the gate. His face was white as snow and his eyes were dark as holes. He was breathing but barely. His lips were torn. His fingers were frostbitten. There was a bite mark on his chest. And everyone froze. Because it was the first case in 2 weeks. Grigori came out to the fire where everyone had gathered. He stood calmly, did not shout, but he spoke in such a way that everyone listened. He is one of us, but we don't know how long it will take. Sometimes the transformation takes an hour, sometimes a day. We can't take risks. He will be isolated, under observation. If he doesn't rise by dawn, we'll decide. I asked, what if he wakes up? Gregory looked at me and said, then we will listen to him, but only once. The room where Pasha was kept was a former primary school classroom. Once upon a time, they taught how to put letters together, hung up schedules and posters with cats. Now, the window was boarded up, the door propped up with a chair, and a man lay on the desk, between life and something much worse. I didn't want to go there, but I went. All day long in the kitchen, I felt eyes on me, silent, short. People seemed to be trying to remember me, as if they were already unsure whether I would stay. And perhaps not without reason. At midnight, I took the flashlight and headed into the hallway. The light wandered along the walls, scratched by nails and faded with time. The air was damp. It was quiet outside the office door, but I felt he was not sleeping. I knocked. Pasha, this is Inna. Can I come in? There was no answer. I slowly opened the door. He was sitting on the floor, pressed against the radiator, wrapped in a blanket. His eyes were red. His lips were cracked. He looked at me and said barely audibly, I'm sorry. I didn't know that. It would start so quickly. I wanted to help, but there were more of them in the warehouse than we thought. I came closer. He didn't twitch. He didn't growl. He just looked. Show me your hand, I said quietly. He pulled it out with difficulty. The bite mark was dark blue, like a bruise, but it wasn't pulsating yet. Sometimes the infected's muscles would start twitching. For now, everything was calm for him. It was yesterday morning, he said. I thought I had at least a day. I was walking back. I wanted to warn you. And then, I don't remember how I got there. I looked at him and a lump formed in my throat. He was a boy, younger than my younger brother, who died in the first days, when everything was just beginning. He just wanted to be needed. You had a choice, I said. He nodded. I chose you, because I didn't want to die alone. It's the end anyway, right? I stood up silently, locked the door from the outside. There would be a trial in the morning, and in this commune, as I understood, a trial is not about the truth. It is about fear. When I returned to the office, they were waiting for me. Vera, the one who cooked with me, was sitting by the window. She lit a cigarette without even looking in my direction. Do you know how I got here? She asked. I shook my head. I was a minibus driver. My husband, son, grandson, all died. I was left alone. Then these guys came. First one, then 3. I got behind the wheel and drove off, got to the Moscow Ring Road, then further. There was a checkpoint, soldiers, but they were gone. Just uniforms and bones. I came back, bumped into these guys. She nodded towards the corridor. They promised order. I am not against order. But I remember how it works. First, order. Then, a list. Then, walls. I realized that she was not afraid. Not of zombies, not of death. Only of walls. Why did you stay? Because at least there is food here. And people. Even if they are like this. She stubbed out her cigarette in an old math textbook and left. The next morning, Grigory gathered everyone in the gym. There were more people than I thought. Almost 30. Some came at night. Some I didn't notice. The air was thick with smoke and dampness. In the center, a stool. On it, Pasha, tied up but alive. Grigori stepped forward. His face was stony. There was a bandage on his shoulder. He spoke quietly but clearly. "We have a charter. Anyone who poses a threat must be isolated." Pasha violated the order. He went to the warehouse without an escort. He was bitten. He did not report it immediately. That's already 2 violations. He looked at everyone. "But we have a law. It hasn't turned into something. It can be useful. We don't lose people without reason." Pasha was untied. He stood there swaying. He seemed even smaller. Who was in favor of giving him a chance? Hands went up. Several. Who was against? There were more hands. I remained silent. Grigori nodded. He came up. He hugged Pasha. Then he said, "I'm sorry, son." And Alexei, the security guard, took a step forward. Pasha didn't scream. He just closed his eyes. There was no shot, just a blow, dull, heavy. Nobody spoke in the evening. Only Vera quietly turned on an old cassette player. A recording of a Soviet choir came from the speaker. "Rise, great country." I sat by the window and looked out into the night. Shadows were moving outside the school again. And at that moment I understood. The commune is not about a bright future. It is about survival, about the price you pay for order. And if I want to remain human, I will have to choose to live by these rules or to change them from the inside. There was an alarm again at night. There was a crackling sound on the radio. Someone was shouting from the tower. Then everything went quiet. I woke up from the ringing of a bell tied to the ladder. This meant only one thing. Someone had approached the perimeter. As I was going down, the floor was slippery with frost. The radiators were no longer lit. All the heat was kept only in the dining room, where there was a potbelly stove, and in the rooms where they were on duty. The rest of the building was freezing. Grigori was already standing in the hall. He was wearing a long quilted jacket, a fur hat, and a flashlight in his hand. Next to him was Alexei with a gun. Behind him were shadows, young guys whose names I didn't know. Each had a shovel, a crowbar, or a rebar. "Vera, Inna," Grigori said, seeing us, "don't go back to the kitchen. Go to the northern corridor, the emergency exit. There's something serious there." I nodded. Vera and I, without saying a word, turned into a dark passage that smelled of paint, mold, and old books. The school lived on the bones of the old world. Every brick here was saturated with voices that had long since died down. When we went out into the yard, I saw where the alarm was coming from. There was a corpse lying near the northern wall. More precisely, what used to be a man. He didn't look like a dead person. He didn't drag his leg. He didn't wheeze. He was killed. His skull had been smashed by something heavy. His arm was broken. His rib cage was dented. But there were no teeth, no bite marks, no signs of infection. On his body was a jacket with an emblem, a yellow circle with a wolf's mouth drawn inside. It was the symbol of one of the groups that was only spoken of in whispers in the commune. They were called Wolf Outpost, bandits, semi-anarchists, those who lived by different laws. Without ideas, only weapons and force. Their camp was somewhere beyond the railroad tracks. They said they had trucks, generators, even a radio station, and that they traded bullets for people. Not always alive. Grigori leaned over the body. Alexei looked around. Why is he alone?" Vera asked. "Too clean," Grigori replied. "Either reconnaissance or a trap." He turned to me. "Inna, you're in the kitchen. You hear more than anyone. Have there been conversations in the last few days? Whispers? Hints?" I hesitated. "Yesterday, I heard one of the new guys, one of those who came at night, talking about how Zastava now has trophies, that they cleaned out the weapons warehouse in Biryulyovo. But, I didn't know that he was telling the truth." Gregory frowned. "They needed a reason. We'll send people to check the area. If they came, it's just the beginning." There was a meeting that same day, without long introductions. "We can't rely on a wall and pipes," Grigori said. "We need to prepare a defense, and we need to choose those who can speak for us if necessary, if they want to negotiate." He turned his gaze to me. I froze. "Inna, you know how to listen, and you're a stranger. Not one of ours to begin with. They'll trust you more. You'll go to talk if they show up. And if they don't show up, Alexei added gloomily, then we'll need every hand with a weapon. The next morning I found a note in my notebook. The paper was old, with faded lines. They are coming. Do not fear them as you fear yourself. The enemy is within. Signature, nobody. I didn't immediately understand who could have left this. There were no sheets like this anywhere, only in the chemistry room, where the medical center was now. I went there, but Tamara only shook her head. The paper was burned long ago. Only a few sheets remain. I don't know who took it, but if this is a joke, it's very inappropriate. The word inside kept running through my head. 2 days later, they came to us, not noisily, not with a shout. They just lit a torch in the middle of the night on the platform by the gate, and next to him, there were 3, all in identical jackets, a wolf's mouth on the chest. One is tall, with a clean-shaven head. The second is a woman with a bandaged hand. The third is a teenager, still a boy, with a machine gun in his hands. They stood in silence. Then the tall one took a step forward. We came for ours. He is dead, but he was part of us. We do not want war, but you have violated the border. Grigori came out, slowly, with a straight back. We didn't shoot. He came himself. Then give me the body. Silence. Grigori looked at me. I stepped forward. I said, we didn't know who he was. He didn't talk, but he wasn't infected, just killed. The woman stepped closer. If you didn't want war, why break bones? We take it as a sign. Gregory said, we will give the body, but without signs, without threats. We are not enemies. We just want to live. They nodded. They took the dead man and left. No shots, no ultimatums, but something about their walk was wrong. I watched them go, and something inside me ached. This was just the beginning. They left in silence, leaving no words or signs. Only the fire continued to smoke at the very edge of the snowy yard, as if a reminder, you have been noticed. We handed over the body, wrapped it in tarpaulin, handed it over without weapons, without ribbons, without words. Grigori said, this is a gesture of respect. Alexei, that this is weakness. I did not know who was right. I only felt how a draft began to creep between the bricks of the school, some kind of cold that had nothing to do with the weather. That same night, 2 cans of stewed meat and a flask of fuel went missing. At first, they thought it was a new guy, a guy from Kotelniki who showed up last week, but they found him in the basement. Dead. No blood. No scream. Just lying there as if he had fallen asleep, with his face turned to the wall. Vera didn't want to talk, but I checked the supplies myself. Where the canister of gasoline usually stood, there was nothing. Someone had taken it, or drained it. In the morning, Alexei gathered 3 of them on the roof. He made them stand there for an hour in the wind. One of them fainted. He said, let them learn to see those who are hiding. Gregory did not interfere, and only Tamara came up to me later, when Vera and I were cleaning the stove. There's someone here who works for Zastava, she said quietly. They knew too precisely where the weak points were. They showed up too quickly. I nodded. Do you suspect? Everyone. But not you. I didn't know why. Maybe because I was new. Maybe because I hadn't been to the first meetings. Maybe because I hadn't yet fit into their chain of fear. Entend. Mal tontin. The next day, the radio broke. One of the guys, Sashka with greasy hair who was always fiddling with equipment, said that someone had bitten the wire. On purpose. The corners were burnt. The insulation was removed with a knife. Not rodents. Not a mistake. Whoever it is, they want us to remain blind, he said. No communication, no patrols, no signal. They're making us deaf to something. Vera began sleeping with a knife under her pillow. I didn't sleep at all. In the evening, already closer to night, I noticed movement near the firewood warehouse. A small shadow. Fast. Not heavy. I took the lantern and went out. It was hard to breathe. The frost burned my face, and every movement echoed in my throat as a dry cough. When I opened the door, there was no one, only silence and the smell of soot. I directed the light into the corner and saw a child, a girl of about 8, a gray sweater, bare legs, fingers with abrasions. She looked at me as if I were a ghost. "Who are you?" She remained silent. "How did you get here?" Silence. "Where are yours?" Silence. Then she pointed to her throat, a stripe, an old scar. She couldn't speak. I took her inside to the office where the old textbooks were kept, gave her a blanket, tea. She ate greedily, but not like a wild animal, as if she knew she wouldn't be punished. Later I told Gregory. "No tongue," he said. "They abandoned her?" "It seems so. She could be bait, or just a child." He looked at me. His eyes were tired. "We don't have the resources for simple, but if you want, take it upon yourself. In the room opposite yours. Under supervision." I nodded. I named the girl Zoya. She didn't object. The next morning she washed the dishes herself, carried water, even helped Vera in the kitchen. Her burnt fingers were dexterous and fast, and her silence didn't frighten me, unlike some adults. But the calm did not last. On the 3rd day, there was a fire. The chemistry room was on fire. Old reagents, rags, papers, flames spread across the ceiling. We managed to put them out with buckets, snow, jackets. But one person was still burned. The same Sashka, the technician. He ran out into the corridor, blazing like a torch, and shouted, "It's him! It's him!" "Who?" Alexei shouted. "He. Inside," Sashka managed to say before he fell. "We couldn't save him, and again no one knew who he was." But I remembered the note. The enemy is within." Later that night, I heard Tamara arguing with Grigori. "We're losing people from the inside. It's not the zombies that kill, it's the fear." "Then we need a purge," he replied. "We have to restore order. What if we cut out those who are not yet guilty?" "So, we will save those who remain." And then I realized they are ready to shoot their own. I went outside. There in the darkness near the fence stood Zoya, silent, looking towards the forest. I came up and sat down next to him. "Are you afraid?" She shook her head. Then she took a piece of paper from her bosom and handed it to me. It was as thin as silk. On it was a picture. A school, people, fire, one person, inside, no face. "Did you draw this?" She nodded, and I realized she knows something, maybe more than us. All night long someone was knocking. Not at the door, inside, somewhere down there, under the floors. At first I thought I was imagining things. Then, that it was the rats, again. But the rhythm was conscious, as if someone was giving a signal. 3 short ones. Pause. 3 long ones. Pause. Then 3 short ones again. Alarm signal, according to the old army code. SOS. Someone was calling for help. Or luring. I woke up before dawn. Zoya was sleeping by the radiator, curled up in a ball. Her hands were pressed to her chest, her fingers were bruised. I carefully covered her with a blanket and went out into the hallway. Alexei was smoking on the stairs. A hand-rolled cigarette was in his fingers. There was soot on his face. "Did you hear?" he asked. "Yes, under the floors. We sealed the basements a week ago, after the dead man incident. It's dark, dust, mice, but the sound isn't from them. Someone's there." I nodded. "And what will you do?" He took a drag. "Grigory wants to clean everything out. We'll start in the evening. Roll call, search, anyone against it, against the wall." "Do you think it will help?" He looked at me for a long time. Then he threw away his cigarette. "I think we've already lost." It all started in the morning. Grigori gathered everyone in the gym. The floor creaked, the walls were covered in soot. On a stool stood a machine gun, a real one, not homemade, with a magazine. Combat ready. In the commune, Only sentries and guards held weapons. When they put it on a stool, it meant one thing. The conversation would end if someone said something unnecessary. We lived together, he began. We shared water. We shared fire. We shared bread. But someone among us decided that it was possible to live differently. That it was possible to steal, burn, kill. I say no to that. He glanced around at everyone. The inspection will begin this evening, room by room, bed by bed. If anyone tries to hide, they will be considered an enemy. An enemy is not a person. An enemy is a target. He paused. And now, let's get down to business. And they parted. Without further ado, only eyes full of fear. I returned to my room, but I no longer felt at home. The school that had once seemed like a refuge was now a trap, a fortress where the walls whispered, the doors watched. People were more afraid of each other than of the dead. Tamara knocked on my door. You will be checked too. Don't think that you are on the sidelines. I don't think. Then be careful, and don't trust Vera. Why? Because she's too quiet, too loyal. Those are the first to break. She left. I sat down on the bed, opened the bag. At the bottom lay that very note. The enemy is within. The paper was slightly damp, and it smelled like vinegar. Chemicals, laboratory. I went there. The chemistry room was charred after the fire, but the corner with the reagents was intact. I found a jar of acetic acid. The smell is exactly the same. Someone who wrote the note had been here. I noticed scratches on the floor, as if someone had moved a cabinet. I bumped into a panel and moved it. Behind it was a niche, narrow, dark, and in it was a notebook, a child's book. The cover is peeling, but inside are pages covered in neat handwriting. A diary. We didn't eat again today. Grigori said, food is on schedule. And I found a mouse. I wanted to bring it to Vera, but she said, throw it away. She looked at me as if I was a stranger. Zoya doesn't speak again, but at night she draws. I saw. She draws flames and people without faces. I'm afraid of her. If I die, let them know. I tried. I was just alone. There was no signature, only an initial. M. I walked out of the classroom and bumped into Vera. What are you doing here? I hid the notebook behind my back. Hey, checking. After the fire. She narrowed her eyes. Then she walked away. When I returned, Zoya was already on her feet. She saw the notebook in my hands and shook her head. Did you know him? She nodded. Who is he? She took a pencil. She drew a face. A boy. Curly hair, glasses, thin arms. I remembered him. He was with the first wave, quiet, from Dorogomilovo. Never spoke, but was always fixing something. He disappeared a week ago. They thought he had escaped or died. Zoya added flames to the drawing. There is a shadow on the face, dark, like a mask. He was the one who wrote the notes? She didn't answer. Or you? She looked at me. Her eyes were dark and attentive, and she nodded, slowly. I didn't turn her in, but now I understood someone in the commune knew that Zoya was the key, or a witness, or a link. And if they found out, that night when the searches began, someone knocked on my door. Inna, open up. It was Alexei, alone. We need you. They found traces in the storage room. There's something written there. We don't understand. I went with him. Zoya stayed. I told her to lock the door. Inside the warehouse, on the wall, written in black paint, was the following. Your faith won't save you. It'll only lull you to sleep before they start tearing you apart. And next to it is a child's palm print. Small, narrow, precise. Is this hers? Asked Alexei. I remained silent. If you don't tell me, he continued, she'll disappear tomorrow. We're not playing games. Grigori already doubts you. I looked at the wall, on hand. How quickly everything began to fall apart. And then I replied, It was me. He looked at me and smiled crookedly. You're stupid, Inna. I'm just tired of being afraid. Oh. Returning to the room, I found Zoya with a knife in her hands. She stood with her back to the door. Everything's fine, I whispered. For now, yes. She lowered her hand. And then I realized that this is not the end. This is the beginning. Not a hunt for the enemy, but a hunt for conscience. The corridor smelled of damp and burning. The dust that had eaten into the walls over the decades seemed to come to life. In every dark corner there was fear. In every look there was a question. People no longer spoke to each other. They only looked, and looked for weakness. Gregory acted quickly. At dawn, 3 were brought out. Brothers from Solntsevo, young, with identical features. Before that, they had been fiddling with the generator, fixing something on the roof, sometimes going hunting alone. One of them, the eldest, Dimka, tried to explain. He said that they hadn't touched anything, that they had been asked permission to take fuel, that they had worked for everyone. Alexei stood next to the machine gun. His hand did not shake. There was a trial, Grigory said briefly. Everything you said was taken into account. But facts are more important than words, traces, connections, inconsistencies. He turned to the crowd. Their faces were masks of stone. Even Vera didn't blink. We don't kill our own, he continued. We get rid of those who pretend to be our own. The shots were dry, without pathos, without warning. 3 fell almost simultaneously. 1 was still moving. Then Alexei came up and finished him off with a rifle butt. After that, no one spoke until the evening. I was washing my hands at the old wash basin when Tamara came up to me. Her face was pale with shadows under her eyes. Did you see it? And everyone saw it. Did you hear? What? She looked back. Last night someone got into the pantry, opened the door, which had a double lock, no keys, no traces, just a note on a sack of flour. When everything rots, all that's left is to cut out the diseased part. I froze. Style? The same? Tamara nodded. So it's not finished. No, this is just the beginning. Someone inside is playing, not taking revenge, but purifying. We remained silent. Does Gregory know? He thinks it's you. I turned around abruptly. What? You are too soft. You are a stranger. And next to the girl. And the girl draws too accurately. This is a child. In this world, children grow up in a week. I returned to the room. Zoya was sitting by the window holding a pencil. On the paper were the outlines of the school. Next to them were figures. 3, lying down. 1 had blood on the snow. Did you know? I asked. She looked at me. Her face was calm. Then she wrote on the back, I hear. What do you hear? She drew an ear, and behind it, eyes. Many eyes. From the walls, from the floor, from the school. I sat down next to him. My hands were shaking. Do you want to leave here? She nodded. Where? She was drawing again. A forest, branches, a road, and in the distance a tower, a radio tower, tents all around. Is this a camp? Nod. Were you there? No. Then a pause, and again a nod. I didn't understand. She says no, and then yes, as if she really hears something bigger than me. That evening, there was a ruckus in the kitchen. One of the guards, Fedya, with a bullet in his leg, started a row. He shouted that he didn't trust anyone, that someone was poisoning the water, that the tea was now contaminated, that people were being starved. I saw Vera taking the powder from Tamara, he yelled. That they want to clean everyone out and be left alone with that bastard Grisha. Alexei came quickly, but Vera was faster. She came up, took the knife, and stuck it into the table next to his hand. One more word and you'll be eating snow for the rest of your life, or until your teeth fall out. He retreated, but he did not forget. An hour later, he was gone. Found under the stairs, face covered in blood. Blunt impact. No one heard anything or didn't want to hear anything. Shaparsak. When after that, Grigori issued an order. Now everyone sleeps with a recorded duty. Those who are not on shift, rest. Those who are idle, against the wall. People started whispering that this was not right, that this was already a camp, that numbers on the sleeves would start next. A young man named Vlad approached me. His face was angular, his eyes sharp. "We're going to talk to Grigori," he said quietly. "A lot of people. We don't want a revolution. We want a voice. It will be a revolution. No, it will be a meeting. According to the charter, the commune is not about one person. It is about everyone. Otherwise, we will repeat the mistakes of the old world." He handed me a list, neat handwriting, 16 names. "Are you with us?" I looked at Zoya, then out the window. Somewhere in the distance, a flash was blinking. Someone was burning a fire. "Yes," I said. I'm with you." But at night, someone stole the list, and in the morning, 16 names were written on the wall, in black paint. Below them is a note. "The enemies are within. We start with them." The bell didn't ring in the morning. Instead, there was a scream, wild, animalistic, as if someone was tearing themselves apart from inside their own throat. We ran out of the rooms, not yet fully awake, still in that state between sleep and nightmare that had become commonplace. Misha was shouting, one of those whose name was on the list. He was found tied up in the gym. His face was covered in blood. On his chest was an inscription in charcoal. "Traitor." Next to him is Vlad's body. His head is broken, his face unrecognizable. There are stains on the floor, traces of dragging, and again, a child's handprint traced in the ashes. But we knew. It wasn't Zoya. It was a warning, a fake, a substitution. Anything to set us against each other. Grigori was silent. He stood there like a monument. Then he simply said, "They were planning a coup tonight. We got there first. I stepped forward. How did you find out?" He didn't look at me. One of them turned in the others. "Who?" It doesn't matter. I felt something tighten inside me, a place where there once lived a belief in structure, in justice, in the fact that here, you can be not just alive, but human. "People have a right to know," I continued. He looked at me. There was no longer any regret in his gaze. Me. People have only one right, to survive." The meeting was short. Alexei became the new leader of the patrols. He was appointed, not elected. Hands did not rise in the air, only fell, into pockets, into sleeves, onto belts with knives. Whispers sounded louder than any speeches. Vera no longer came to the kitchen. Tamara did not leave the medical center. The others were like ghosts. They ate in silence. They worked in silence. They were on duty, in pairs, but they did not look each other in the eye. That night I found another note, on the back of an old childhood questionnaire, yellowed, with the inscription, "My favorite color is blue." On the clean side, "If order is based on fear, it has already fallen." Signature, empty. I didn't sleep. I sat by the door. Zoya was nearby, quiet as always. I tried to figure out what to do now. Stay? Raise a girl in a camp where children draw death and adults choose fear? In the morning, Alexei took the keys to the warehouse from me. "An order," he said. "Reassignment of duties." "I don't mind. Just tell me, did you put me on the list too?" He didn't answer. He just lingered his gaze on Zoya. "Be careful with her, Inna. She has something inside her, not like us." A day later, 3 of them disappeared. They simply left. No one heard or saw them. The watchtower was empty. The shift had been missed, and there were tracks in the snow, not single ones, groups, towards the forest. Gregory ordered that they be considered fugitives. "What if they were looking for help?" Tamara asked. "Then let them find it. But the doors will be closed." It was an order. Vera and I didn't talk in the kitchen. We just cut bread. We poured water. We listened to the dripping from the ceiling, to the wind singing in the broken glass. She was the first to break the silence. I'm leaving. Where? Towards the tower. Zoya drew it. And I know there's something there. A station. A signal. Or people. Or just the end. You won't get there. It's better to die in the snow than to rot here. Are you alone? She looked at me. No, there are already 5. Does Gregory know? He'll find out tomorrow, after we leave. I nodded. But I didn't say that Zoya had been collecting crackers and water in her backpack for several nights in a row. That same night I made up my mind. I went into the storage room. There was emptiness under the old linoleum, a hatch to the basement, long thought to be blocked up. I opened it. Darkness below, and a staircase leading to nowhere. I took the lantern and went down. The walls smelled of damp lime. On the bottom step were scraps of burlap and traces of boots. Someone was already going down. The corridor led under the school. A labyrinth, an old anti-nuclear basement, forgotten by everyone. There are spare doors, shelves, empty bottles, and... I stopped. By the wall lay Grisha, one of the duty officers, unconscious. Nearby was a bandage and a knife. Blood, but not his. On the wall, there is an inscription in charcoal. We are not traitors. We are survivors. And next to it, a map, hand-drawn. A school, a forest, a radio tower, shelters, secret paths. I understand. The fugitives have not given up. They are preparing another way. Exit or fight. Itsetum. When I returned, Zoya was asleep, but in her sleep she was clutching a sheet of paper in her hand. I carefully took it out. On it is Inna. And the inscription, "You will change everything, but first you must become scary." I didn't know what it meant, but I already felt that it was true. It was too quiet in the morning. The mugs did not jingle, the sentries did not wheeze on the radio, even the stove did not crackle. The air was thick as before a thunderstorm, although outside the windows there was frost and dry snow. I knew. This is how the end begins. On the wall at the entrance to the school hung a new notice, cut out of cardboard and nailed to the plywood. Traces of traitors have been discovered. They left with provisions, maps, and weapons. Anyone who shelters fugitives is considered an accomplice. Signature. Secretariat of the commune. Under the signature is the coat of arms. A hammer, sickle, and red star painted in black paint. I stood before him and felt nausea rising. This was no longer order. This was betrayal. In reverse. What had once been called duty was now a trap. Vera didn't appear in the kitchen. I knew she had left, but for some reason, she didn't take Zoya with her. Maybe because Zoya stayed with me, or because she didn't have time. The door to the pantry was slightly open, empty inside. There were no signs of a struggle, only a small scrap of fabric, a corner with a red seam, from Vera's jacket. Alexei walked around the school with a notebook and check marks. He looked into every room. He looked at all of them the same way, seemingly calmly, but no longer like a security guard, like an executioner. Is she with you? He asked, reaching me. Who? You know, Vera or Zoya. There's only me here. He stood at the threshold. Then he said slowly, Grigori wants to gather everyone around the fire. In the evening, there will be a council, according to the new rules. And who decides what the rules are? Death, he answered briefly. I found Zoya in the map storage. She was sitting on the floor between the shelves reading, a real book, a tattered volume with pages torn out. It was Grossman's Life and Fate. I recognized the spine. Do you understand what is written there? She nodded. Then she looked up. They will come, she whispered. I know. Today, I took her hand. We need to be faster. At lunchtime, I received a dry ration and a note. Inside, between a flatbread and a can of beans, was a neatly folded piece of paper. We're close. The stairs under the library. Tonight. Nothing else. No signature, no symbol. But I knew. These are fugitives. Those who did not surrender. And that means we have a chance. I told Zoe, be ready. She didn't ask where. She just nodded. When it got dark outside and the silhouettes of the sentries hung over the fire in the yard, Grigori began to speak. Alexei stood next to him, in military uniform, as always. On the stool, no longer a machine gun. There was a rope, thick, yellow, old, but reliable. We have come a long way from chaos to structure, Grigori said, but some want to bring back the darkness. We will not allow it. Today we will put an end to the traitors, and we will regain our confidence. He brought out the names, one by one. Among them were Vera, Vlad, Misha, and mine. I didn't move. I just squeezed Zoe's hand tighter. Those who appear voluntarily will be heard. Those who run away will be found. Those who remain silent have already taken the enemy's side. I stood up slowly. I am not an enemy. Grigori looked at me. For the first time, with sadness. That's exactly what every enemy says. Then I'll tell you something else, I answered quietly. I was with you from the beginning. I worked. I saved. I fed. But now you want to hang me because someone was scared by the girl's drawings. I took a step forward. This is not a commune. This is a sentence. Someone in the crowd began to whisper. Someone went forward. Someone went back. Alexei raised his hand. Enough. Take him away. But then something happened that no one expected. Zoya came out herself. Slowly, confidently. She approached the stool. She raised her hand and pointed her finger at the rope, then at Grigori. Everyone froze. And then one of the people in the crowd, Lenya, a former welder, stepped forward. I saw it too. They are lying. Then another. And another. It's not her fault. She's a child. This is not a trial. This is a show. We didn't agree on this. Seconds, and everything cracked. People screamed. Alexei fired into the air, but he was pushed. Someone hit him in the stomach. Grigori tried to leave, but his way was blocked. In this chaos, I grabbed Zoya, darted toward the library, and pushed aside the bookcase. Behind it was a hatch. We dove into the darkness, slamming the lid behind us. They were waiting downstairs. 3. One was the same young man, Vlad, who was thought to be dead. His face was bandaged. The second was Vera. Her smile was smeared with soot. And the third was a silent man with a radio and a pistol. You're just in time, he said. What now? Now we have a plan. A shot rang out in the distance above. And time, he added, is running out. The basement led down into the belly of the school, where the walls still remembered the sirens of the civil defense, where the air was heavy even in the days when there were no zombies or guards with guns. We ran through a narrow corridor, up dirty steps, past broken furniture, charred boxes, and old Soviet posters that read, "Citizen, be prepared." While chaos raged above, we made our way to the exit marked on the map, an old ventilation shaft leading outside the school grounds. Vera, Vlad, and the man with the gun were walking behind. His name was Ignat, a former communications specialist. He knew the tower from pre-pandemic times. He said there was a backup communications center, autonomous power supply, and even armored rooms. If there was anything left, that was our chance. Zoya walked next to me, holding my hand tightly. She wasn't crying, she wasn't shaking. She was just looking ahead, as if she already knew what was there, as if she saw it. But the silence did not last long. "Stop," Ignat whispered, raising his hand. We froze at the turn. There was a faint grinding sound ahead, as if someone was dragging iron across concrete. "Listen," Vera whispered. "These are not people." And then we saw them. Zombie. 5. maybe more. Their movements were slow as always, but their eyes... No, there were no eyes. Instead, empty black holes. On their skin, the remains of red paint. On their chests, torn red bandages. Ours, Vlad whispered. They were ours. They didn't die outside. They died here. And someone put bandages on them to send a message. "It's Alexei," Vera said through gritted teeth. "It's his method. Even if they're dead, fear has to work." Ignat gave a sign. We walked around the dead men quietly, pressing ourselves against the walls. But one of them noticed, or sensed. He raised his head and rushed. I lifted the pipe and struck. The sound was dull and viscous. He fell, but the others began to move. "Let's run!" Ignat shouted. We rushed forward, behind us howling, crashing, shouting. Zoya ran without looking back. I held her hand with all my might. To the side, an emergency exit. An old door with a Soviet sign. Emergency evacuation route. We crashed into it. Open. Snow. Freedom. But Ignat did not run out. Just a shot. One. And silence. It was 7 kilometers to the tower. Through the forest. Through the snow-covered dead strip, which used to be called the green zone. Now it was white. Silent. We walked for hours. Our legs felt like lead. The wind hit our faces like knives. But we walked. And then, almost at our destination, we saw silhouettes. 5. Or 6. It's hard to tell exactly. Alexei. They weren't chasing us. They were going to intercept us. Through the flank. They knew the route. "Traitor?" Vera exhaled. I knew who. "Is she..." Now we took shelter in a frozen guardhouse about 500 meters from the tower. An old guard booth. Broken windows. Cameras that hadn't worked for a long time. Inside, a generator covered in frost. Silently, as if on reflex, Vlad began to pick at the wires. "If we have time, we'll send a signal," he said. "To the frequency I set up. They might answer there." "Who?" "We don't know. But it's a chance." Alexei was approaching. We placed bottles with incendiary mixture prepared in advance. Ignat managed to pass on the plan before he remained in the basement. Zoya was holding a knife. I put my hand on her shoulder. "Don't be afraid. Everything will be fine." She shook her head. "No," she whispered. "It will be different." And then they came. The first shots are in the air, then at the walls. Vlad is wounded. We throw cocktails, flashes, screams, smoke, noise. The snow turns black, but Alexei broke through. I saw his eyes, cold as metal. "Give up," he said. "The commune is not for the weak." "You killed her," I replied. "You killed the idea." He raised his weapon. And then a shot, but not from his own barrel, from behind, from the shadows. Gregory. He stood there, staggering, wounded. His face was gray. His eyes were alive. "You forgot, Alexei," he said. The commune is not fear, it is faith." Alexei collapsed, without a sound. We reached the tower. Inside there was dust, cobwebs, but everything was standing. Vlad made it in time. The radio came to life. Squeak, click, answer. "We hear you. Who are you?" I took the microphone. We are people. And we are still alive. But 3 days later we returned. The school stood, half empty, destroyed, but not dead. There, by the fire, stood Grigori again, without a bandage, without machine guns. "We're building again, from scratch," he said, "without fear, with new hands, with new eyes, with those who have seen the edge and haven't fallen." I stepped forward. Zoya is nearby. "Then let's begin. But this time, for real. And the commune remained, cleansed, wounded, but alive. And for the first time, with a real idea, not a decoration. And beyond the forest, someone heard our signal. Spring came, as always, unexpectedly. The snow melted slowly, heavily. leaving dark streaks on the sidewalks and rag corpses of old streets. But still, it was leaving, and with it, the winter of fear. In the school, now renamed commune headquarters, the stove worked again. The children began to draw not only fire and blood, but also trees. And on the wall in the dining room, a new banner appeared, a white sheet. On it, in red paint, written labor, justice, life. The commune is not dead. It has changed. It has become quieter, sterner, more honest. Instead of Grigory, the council was now in effect. 7 people, 1 vote. Inna Safronova. I didn't want this role, but it came to me. Because it stayed. Because it didn't give up. Because Zoya silently held my hand and no one, not even the oldest fighters, dared to resist her gaze. Mom, the first ones arrived in April. A group of 15. Dirty, tired, wheezing. Among them, 1 former military man, 3 women, 1 with a baby. They were brought by a man named Samvel. He spoke slowly, with an Armenian accent, but firmly. He said that in the south, near the Moscow ring road, a fortified area had emerged, that all the metro stations there had been subdued, that people were being gathered, but not to help, to subjugate. It's not a commune, he said. It's a zone, with an administration, with punishments, with prisons. They call themselves the Restoration Council. But in essence, it's an army. And you're either with them or nobody. We listened. Vlad was silent. Vera pressed her lips together. Grigory lowered his gaze. Do we have a choice? Tamara asked. Samvel shrugged. You have an idea. And they have a tank. Gumadpur. That same night on the roof of the headquarters, we discussed the plan. For the first time in a long time, again, as people. Not as survivors, but as citizens. Every decision weighed heavily. Every word. A reminder. The price of a mistake now is not 1 life, but the entire sprout that we have sprouted in this ashes. We can't withstand a direct blow, Vlad said. But we can be a bridge. If we make the commune a point of attraction. Do you want us to become the capital? Tamara asked. No, but if we are the first to show how it can be different, someone will choose us, not them. I said, then we need a voice, radio, communication. We need the wind to carry the idea further. And we did it. The next day we went on air, staring at the light bulb of the old radio station. I held the microphone, talking into nowhere, into the air, into the snow, into the sky, into the charred walls. This is the commune speaking. We are alive. We work. We are not slaves. If you hear this, you are not alone. You will not be ordered here. You are needed here. We accept everyone who is ready to work, think, share. We do not promise an easy life, but we promise a real one. The signal went into the fog, and then the answer came, quiet, trembling, but real. We hear you. This is the river area. We're holding on. We have a generator. 5 are alive. Can you get them? I smiled, and for the first time in many months I really smiled. We'll accept it, just faster. But along with the signals, threats also began to arrive. One day we found a box in the basement. It was standing there, as if it had been planted. Inside were burned maps of the commune, and a piece of fabric not just red with a black cross, a new sign, not ours, unfamiliar. On the lid, there is an inscription, burned with something chemical. Your fire will soon go out. We are coming. It's them, said Samvel. The council. They have many faces. This is one of them. Who planted it? Someone who is already inside. And again the shifts began. Again, night patrols. But now we were different, not intimidated, but prepared. And Zoya She changed. She didn't draw war anymore. She drew trees, people, fields, sometimes a flag. It had no coats of arms, just the sun and the horizon. "Where is this?" I asked. She wrote, "Later." And I knew. She already sees what we are only just beginning to build. The commune grew, transformed, from a point of survival to a structure, to a form, to a dream. But in the forest at night, sometimes the lights went out. Individuals disappeared. And then we found only things, or traces, or nothing at all. Someone in the darkness whispered, "You shouldn't have turned on the light. Now it will find you." Which means he is already nearby. They arrived at noon, in 2 cars black as ash. Not armored cars, not jeeps, but not something found in a dump. Factory equipment, silent engines, polished iron, headlights with tinted covers. On the doors, a coat of arms, a hammer and a compass needle superimposed on each other. A new symbol. The Council of Restoration. We were expecting this. But still, something inside froze. 4 people got out of the car. 2 in identical gray jackets. 1 with a tablet. 1 with a camera. And in front of them all, a woman. Tall. Black hair. Clean uniform. On her shoulder, a badge. Not a military one. Administrative. She came to the gate and said, "Citizens of the commune. I am the authorized representative of the council. My last name is Vasilyeva. I have come with a proposal. We have no intention of seizing, but we have tasks. To restore. Your signal has been received. You heard us. Now we want to hear you." Grigory stood next to me. He was pale, but held himself straight. "Are you unarmed? We have security, but they will remain in the cars. I am here to talk." We let them in. The council met in the library. Zoya sat next to me. Her notebook was on her lap. She was drawing, silently, without looking up. Vasilyeva spoke calmly, smoothly. Each word seemed to be drawn out by a thread. Moscow is in ruins. We all know that. But while some are digging the earth in search of potatoes, others are creating the future. We are establishing order, zones of influence, logistics. We offer you to join the structure, preserving your autonomy, your rituals, your faces, but with inclusion in a single restoration project. What does this mean in practice? Tamara asked. Weekly reports, transfer of part of resources, registration, presence of observers, integration into the supply system, security guarantees. What if we refuse? She smiled. Then you will be left alone. And loners, as practice shows, quickly become empty spaces on the map. I was silent for a long time. Then I stood up. We already had a system, before. It collapsed. And it didn't collapse because of zombies, but because of people. That's why we don't repeat it, Vasilyeva retorted. We build anew, without ideology, only with efficiency. Without an idea, there is no man, said Grigory. Quietly. But everyone heard. Vasilyeva looked at him, then turned her gaze to Zoya. She doesn't speak? No, I answered. Strange, but expressive. A child who is silent, but looks as if he knows who will die first. Zoya stopped drawing. She stood up. She came up close to the woman and handed her a piece of paper. On it is a building with a flag, commune, and in the background is a shadow, black, with a cross on the forehead. By the window is a figure, lonely, female. Vasilyeva smiled, but there was a tremor in her smile. Interesting, very. After the council, she went out to the people. She talked about help, about warmth, about the future. Some listened, some turned away, and some wrote down. The next day, one of us disappeared. Yura, a carpenter, didn't even have time to pick up his tools. His room is in order. On the bed is a council booklet, neatly left on the pillow, like a signature. 3 days later, another one disappeared, and on the fourth night, a man burst into our room, covered in blood. His jacket was torn off. No shoes. Skinny as a shadow. I was running from them, he whispered. The mark. They put a mark under the skin. Then, you can't leave. He died before dawn. On the chest is a scar, right above the heart. A brand burned in the shape of a compass needle. I gathered the council. We sat in a circle. No lamps, no cameras, just fire. We can't leave, I said, but we can't cave in either. So we have to become what they fear, free and alive. We need a voice. We need people to support us. Shall we start the radio again? Vlad asked. No. Too noticeable. Then Zoya pulled out the drawing. On it is a paper dove. On it is the word hand. I understand. We will start a courier network. On foot, on skis, through pipes, through basements, throats with letters. Like in war. Like in partisan war. And we will call it the hand of the commune. But I knew. Vasilyeva hadn't left. She was somewhere nearby, watching, waiting. And when the first messenger left through the old tunnel, I whispered to Zoya, "Now we have started." She nodded. And then she wrote on the wall, "Time is up. Now, only fire." The first messenger returned on the fourth day. The boots are dirty, the hands are scratched. In the backpack are notes, handwritten, in different handwritings. In different inks. One is from a settlement in the area of the Yaroslavsky railway station. We hear, we have old people, children. We need salt. We need honey. But the main thing is words. We will accept yours, and we are waiting for your news. Another one is from Lefortovo. There is a connection, a radio station. Secret. We can broadcast, but we need protection. Another one from the outskirts. We are not communists, but we are not subordinates. We are ready to share, but not to bow. We spread the pages like wings, whispered to each other, we are not alone. The commune was growing not by walls, but by an idea. We were in other areas, in heads, in actions. Vasilyeva didn't show up, but I knew she was watching. Through other people's eyes, through those in the crowd who were too confidently silent. Zoya started drawing at night. A lot. I woke up from her breathing, from the scratching of the pencil. On each sheet, the same thing. A city, on fire, people, a lot. And behind them, a shadow, an animal, a pack, not just a zombie, a horde. I asked, when? She shrugged. But one day she wrote, until the new snow. Then it's too late. We increased our patrols. We started to fortify the second perimeter. Old radiators, metal doors, sandbags. Vlad and Samvel kept records, kept watch. We were preparing, although we didn't know what for. At the same time, from the inside, everything became fragile. A commune is no longer a home. Alexei Jr., a former history teacher, once said. It's a network. We're losing it. We are expanding it, Tamara answered. Or stretch it, he objected. Until it breaks. And he wasn't the only one who thought so. Some wanted an open alliance with the council. Others wanted complete isolation. Still others wanted to flee. All that held us together was faith. But faith does not warm us if all that is around us is the cold and footsteps behind the wall. One day the signal from the east died down. Lefortovo station fell silent. The messenger did not return. Then Falcon, then Pechatniki. The dots on the map that were alive suddenly became gray. Silent. It's them, said Zoya. Advice? She shook her head. No, they. She showed a drawing, a chain, broken, and in the center, 0, empty, like a dead man's eye. At dawn, the lookout noticed movement. He didn't believe in the binoculars. Then he conveyed, "Not people, not technology. They are coming. They go like a river, like hunger. Flock." We climbed onto the roof of the school. I looked and my heart sank. Below, between the trees, along the streets, across the wastelands, something was moving. At first, just bodies, then a swarm, dozens, hundreds, no order, just a direction towards us. "They weren't supposed to gather like this," Vlad said. "This isn't their way." "Someone was chasing them," Samvel whispered, or called them. And then smoke appeared. On the horizon, black, heavy, artificial, Vasilyeva. Advice. They burned one of the colonies, and those who survived, the dead, came at us. That evening I gathered everyone in the gym. People were silent. Some were ready. Some were devastated. I stepped forward. Zoya was next to me. "We are not a fortress. We are not an army. But we are people, and this is our land. We are not here for the coat of arms, not for the flag. We are here for those who are close, who did not betray, who worked, who saved. Tomorrow is a battle, not with the council, not with strangers, but with the darkness itself. And we must stand firm, not for the sake of power, for the sake of an idea." And the people nodded. Atman. Grigori picked up the old flag, the one that had once been a symbol. It didn't shine. It was tattered, like us. He raised it above the school. "They will surround us, but they will not defeat us, because zombies do not know what tomorrow is. But we do." The night before the assault was starless, as if the sky had decided to turn away from the earth. Everything around was breathing with bated breath and dead. We stood on the walls like ancient guards with sticks, crowbars, knives. Someone had a carbine with its last 5 bullets. Someone had a sharpening from an old kitchen knife. Below is movement. The pack approached the first perimeter, unhurriedly. The zombies came in waves. They hobbled, wheezed, crawled. There were so many of them that the snow disappeared beneath them. A black, dense mass in which forms, faces, individuality disappeared. All in the name of hunger, in the name of emptiness. "They don't just move," Vlad whispered. "They press. With pressure. Not with strategy. With mass." "Like a storm," Vera added. "No," said Zoya. "Like fear." She didn't take her eyes off the wall. Her eyes didn't blink. I held her by the shoulder. But I felt she was already somewhere else, looking through the battle, through death. The first blow came in the area of the old children's playground. The fence there was weaker, old metal hastily reinforced with pipes. The sentries held on, shouted through cocktails, sleeves, faces, zombies caught fire, and continued to walk, through the fire, through the bodies. By morning we had lost 6. Then they struck from the south, through the breach in the gym. We retreated, walled up the corridor with desks. Nikita the cook remained inside. He set himself on fire and dozens of dead people with him. The fire saved the school. "We won't last," said Grigori. "Oh, we can't help but hold out," I replied. At dawn, headlights appeared on the horizon. Advice, cars, APCs, cameras, drones, but not help. Observation. They stood aside, clean, cold, not interfering. Vasilyeva got out of the cabin, raised the radio into the sky, and said on the air, "This is a test, a signal. Too many of you think you can do without the system. We will not interfere, but if you survive, you will be ours. If not, you will remain just a myth." I looked at her and felt no hatred, only fatigue. The pack broke through the third perimeter. There were no more than 30 people left in the school, all on their feet, all with weapons, even the children, with slingshots, with bricks. And then Zoya spoke. for the first time. The voice was quiet, like breathing. They are not afraid of death, but they do not hear. If we show them a sound, sharp, real, I understood. Radio. We climbed up onto the roof. The wind was blowing in our faces. The flock was approaching the building. The last line was old windows covered with boards. I turned on the transmitter. I took the microphone. The commune is here. Listen. We are alive. We hear. And we will not retreat. Then, at maximum volume, Vlad connected the signal loop. Reverse whistle, distortion, vibration. It worked. The zombies stopped. For a moment. Then they started shouting, scream, and beat against each other. Beat against the walls. Beat against your own. We didn't know how much had passed. An hour? 5? But suddenly everything went quiet. The flock scattered. Some fell. Some walked away. Just turned around and walked away. Like they were out of program. Like the sound was out of tune. Or maybe they realized that there is no fear here. And will. Anna the council left. Without words, without victory, without defeat. And we stayed, wounded, scorched, but alive. Grigory sat down by the wall and said, "It was a war, not with them, but for us." I looked at the people, at Zoya, at their hands, covered in blood, but tightly clutching each other. And she said, "From this day on, we are not just a commune. We are an example." Spring has truly arrived, not through snow and rain, but through the smell of the earth, through the sound of dripping water, through the voice of a rooster which was raised in the basement and fed with the remains of bread. People began to laugh again, sometimes quietly, first in a whisper, then out loud. The commune survived. We buried the dead behind the school, where there used to be a garden. Each cross was made from desks. Each one had a name, if they knew. If they didn't know, just the word. Ours. Vera said, "This is not a cemetery. This is a monument." We added a sign. They didn't die for power. They died for choice. The council has been restored. Now there are 9 people. Elections. Real. Open. But each candidate is approved through a central decision. Under the pretext of security. What if someone is dangerous? What if someone has a dubious past? A coordination department appeared. Modestly, 2 tables, folders, duty officers, but everyone knew. That's where the lists were. Who says what? Who argues with whom? Who wants the radio to broadcast on a different frequency? The school was now called the Palace of Unity. The name was chosen by popular vote, or almost popular. The papers were carefully collected, then recounted. Inside. On the facade there is a huge slogan carved out of wood. Justice, labor, bright tomorrow. Zoya asked me, "Tomorrow? When is it?" I didn't answer. Then my instructions appeared. How to cook food, how to distribute water, how to behave at roll call. All in the name of order, all to prevent it from happening again. All in the name of survival. One day, Samvel said, "We conquered fear, but gave into habit." For what? I asked. He did not answer immediately. To management. When it's sweet as honey. When you don't notice how you say yes before you hear what. Yekam Vasilyeva did not return, but her place was taken by others, not strangers, our own. Those who were with us in battle, who survived, who believed. And then began to build what he considered right. Now they wore armbands, red, but with a new sign, a half sun, a half circle, a symbol of morning order. This is light, they said. Light does not ask, it illuminates. But I continued to speak on air, rarely, only when I felt that my voice was still mine. There is a commune here. We are alive. We remember. We believe. But one day they sent me a paper. All broadcasts must be coordinated with the Center for Information Harmony, approved by the minutes of the General Meeting number 1. Signature, advice. Angzoya didn't draw people anymore, only cities, streets, and the sky empty. Why? I asked. People disappear, she said, but the buildings remain. They don't care who's in charge. A monument was erected in the square, a woman with a child. The inscription, "Life has conquered death. Eternal gratitude to all who remain." I stood in front of him. Vera was next to me. They were silent. Then Vera said quietly, "It's beautiful and a little scary." Why? Because it's beautiful when you don't need to explain anything anymore, and it's scary when you can't ask. But people lived, worked, built, baked bread, restored greenhouses, taught children to read and count. And, in the evening, at sunset, they looked at the flag fluttering above the building. It was red, but a little darker than before. And only on the old wall in the flooded corridor where no one walked, Zoya drew a small word with charcoal. Start? I looked at him for a long time, and then, without erasing it, she added next to it, "Only if we remember why we survived."